Darkness was the first thing I remember. It was very dark, cold, and I was afraid. But then I saw the big and bright moon, and it seemed to chase the darkness away. When it did, my fear disappeared. Why was I there? What was my destiny? I've never known, and I don't know if I ever will. Jack discovers that with his magical staff, he can freeze everything he touches, and he can also fly. Excited, he visits a nearby village, but his smile turns to terror when he realizes he's invisible and untouchable. This is a story that was underrated at the time, but when viewed from another perspective, can teach us a very valuable lesson. At the North Pole, inside Santa's workshop, something unexpected happens. His globe is enveloped by a kind of dark sand, followed by a macabre shadow. Upon realizing the seriousness of the situation, Santa summons the rest of the Guardians through the Northern Lights. The first of these Guardians is Tooth. She is the Guardian of Teeth and is responsible for collecting children's teeth and storing their childhood memories in them with the help of her fairy assistants. The second is Sandman, the Guardian of Dreams. He has the ability to control and manipulate golden sand, which he uses to create dreams. His role is to ensure that children have happy dreams and are protected from nightmares. The third Guardian is Bunny. He brings decorated eggs to children during Easter and is capable of creating tunnels underground. And the last Guardian is the one who has summoned them all, Santa himself. He explains that he's called them together because he saw a sign indicating that Pitch is plotting something. Pitch, also known as the Boogeyman, is a dark and evil being who is about to put all of the Guardians in check. But I'll tell you more about him in a moment. Just then, the moon appears and reveals to them that for this difficult mission, they'll need a lot of help. So it's chosen a new Guardian, none other than Jack Frost. The Guardians are highly recognized figures. They're icons, whereas Jack Frost is more of a myth. You probably don't know him, so let me explain. He doesn't know how he ended up like this. One bad day, he simply woke up inside a dark, cold lake with no memory of his past. The only thing he's sure of is that his name is Jack, because the moon itself told him. Jack has the ability to create ice, snow, and cold wind, which he uses to move around, pull pranks, and entertain children. He genuinely cares about making sure little ones have fun on snowy days. In fact, he even has the power to lift their spirits and make them laugh. But despite all this, no one believes in him. We see a mother tell her son, "Bundle up or Jack Frost will freeze your nose." But when the child asks who this Jack Frost person is, the mother replies that he's no one. It's just an expression. People perceive him more like an old myth, which is why he is completely invisible to humans. He's never acknowledged by anyone. No one thanks him, no one loves him, and no one thinks of him. So he lives in deep solitude. Jack resents the moon for this. He has no idea what his purpose is or why he exists, which causes him great pain. Here I pause to introduce a concept that will be of great importance in this analysis: the gaze of the other. When we say the other, we refer to any person different from oneself with whom we interact, with their own subjectivity, thoughts, emotions, and perspectives. The gaze of another is very powerful. It literally controls you, defines you, and validates your existence. But I'll explain this better later on. At that moment, the bunny appears along with some Yetis, captures Jack, and takes him to the North's factory, where Santa initiates a ceremony to name Jack a Guardian with grand spectacle. But before they can name him Guardian, Jack stops everyone, showing reluctance to become one of them because he doesn't understand what they do. Tooth explains to him that each of the lights seen in the world represents a child who believes in them, and it's their duty to protect them. Additionally, Santa reveals that, just like with all the other Guardians, it was the moon that chose him. Since the moon chose Jack, North assumes the boy must have an incredible center. The young man doesn't understand what this center is, so Santa explains it's a small wooden figure of himself. In it, we see North with enormous eyes, because they're full of wonder. In Santa's case, that is his center. Eyes filled with wonder at everything. Eyes that see lights and trees and magic in the air, and it's that very wonder that he brings to the world and protects in children. The center refers to the most important quality that defines each of the Guardians, and which they, in turn, provide to children. This center gives meaning to their existence as protectors of children. The man asks Jack what his center is, but he has no idea. Suddenly, the Guardians realize that Tooth's base is under attack by Pitch, so they spring into action. Santa prepares his sleigh. Once in the air, he throws a sphere that opens a portal to the Tooth Palace. They quickly realize that Pitch has stolen the stored teeth and captured Tooth's tiny helpers, and although they try to stop the attack, only a single fairy remains in the palace. Pitch appears before them, declaring war, and reveals that he's doing all of this because he wants people to believe in him. Words that resonate with Jack because he's seeking the same thing. Now let me explain. Pitch is fear, hopelessness, darkness, anguish, and the nightmares that haunt children at night, which is exactly why he's also known as the Boogeyman. He has the power to transform dreams into nightmares, using shadows and black sand to instill fear in children's hearts. Hundreds of years ago, during the Dark Ages, Pitch held absolute power and ruled over everyone's lives. However, the moon chose the Guardians to replace darkness with light, leaving Pitch powerless. With renewed hope, people simply regarded him as a legend or a bad dream, and little by little, he faded into oblivion like an old tale. Now he's tired of hiding under beds and in the shadows, and has declared war on the Guardians. His goal is to make children stop believing in them, because if many children stop believing, the things they protect, hope, wonder, and dreams, will disappear. Light will vanish, and as a result, darkness will take its place, because in the end, that's what darkness is, the absence of light. Pitch knows that by destroying faith in the Guardians and allowing fear to prevail, he'll become the central dominant figure in children's lives, granting him the recognition and control he desperately craves. And in fact, his plan is already working. As all of this unfolds, the children are waking up, but since all the fairies have been captured by Pitch, no one has come to collect their teeth. Because of this, the children are starting to stop believing in the Tooth Fairy, and as a result, her palace is crumbling, and she's losing her powers. After hearing Pitch's story, we realize it's not so different from Jack's. Both find themselves in the same place and share the same desire. No one believes in them, which makes them invisible, and they long to be recognized. To understand this, we need to delve deeper into the concept I mentioned earlier. The recognition of others validates our existence and helps us understand ourselves in relation to the world. Knowing that others see and acknowledge us gives us a sense of being real and present. But remember, in the case of these two, the opposite is true. No human acknowledges their existence, and therefore, they're invisible. So if the conditions are reversed, the consequences are as well. Jack feels that his presence doesn't matter, because to the world, he doesn't exist. Moreover, the lack of external validation can cause a person to feel constantly insecure and anxious about their place in the world, which triggers Jack's existential crisis and makes him ask himself questions like, why am I here? And Jack doesn't just feel that his presence is invalidated, but also all of his actions. Jack asks why Pitch took the teeth. Tooth explains that the most important childhood memories are stored in the teeth. She collects them and preserves them for when children might need them. She tells him she even has his own, from before he became Jack Frost. This hits Jack hard, as he didn't know he had a past. He becomes hopeful at the thought that if he recovers the teeth, he can recover his memories, and decides to join the Guardians to stop Pitch. To keep children believing in the Tooth Fairy, to keep Tooth from weakening further, and to keep Pitch from growing stronger, the team chooses to collect the teeth themselves, house by house. A fierce competition ensues to see who can gather the most. Bunny enters through his magical tunnels, Santa through the chimneys, and the rest through the windows. The collection is so successful that they manage to keep the globe's lights from going out, and it helps Tooth recover. However, two problems arise. The first is that Pitch finds out and decides to take matters into his own hands by going after Sandman to kill him. The second is that due to all the commotion, they wake up a boy named Jamie, who's amazed and thrilled to see all the Guardians are real. Well, almost all of them, since Jack Frost is still invisible. Sandman tries to put the boy to sleep, but accidentally knocks out all the Guardians, except for Jack and himself. Just then, Jack sees Pitch's shadow lurking, so he and Sandman go out to confront him while the rest of the Guardians sleep. The battle is fierce. Pitch tries to kill Sandman, but together he and Jack manage to fend off the attacks. However, the dark forces are too strong, and when Sandman is distracted, Pitch launches an arrow that pierces his heart, who simply looks at his killer with sorrow as he fades away. Pitch unleashes a devastating attack, but Jack manages to repel it. Both sides retreat to regain their strength before the next confrontation. By this point, the Guardians can't afford to waste any more time. Darkness is spreading, and the points of light across the world are fading. Easter is tomorrow, so it seems to be the perfect moment to unite and bring back hope. Together, they go to Bunny's burrow and begin production. However, a little girl appears. She arrived there by using one of Santa's portals while everyone was asleep. At first, the group is worried, but Jack, thanks to his good attitude, humor, and a bit of magic, lightens the mood, and they begin to enjoy producing the eggs. After a lot of hard work, the eggs are finally ready to be hidden. The Guardians know the girl needs to be taken home, so Jack offers to return her. His companions disagree, since Jack is the only one capable of stopping Pitch. Nevertheless, he insists on going quickly, a decision he'll come to regret. Jack leaves the girl, but as he's about to return, he hears a very familiar voice. It's a woman calling to him, so acting on impulse, he flies off in search of her. The voice comes from a tunnel located exactly where the boogeyman hides, under a bed. Despite the warnings of the tiny fairy, Jack goes in. There he finds Pitch's lair, the rest of the captured fairies, and the children's teeth. He begins searching as if his own life depends on it. Just then, Pitch appears and torments him by revealing that he knows Jack's greatest fear, that no one will ever believe in him, that he will never know why he was chosen to be this way, or why he's invisible. Pitch hands him the memories, but Jack realizes it was all a trap. He rushes back to Bunny's burrow as fast as he can, only to find that the shadows have destroyed everything. The eggs never made it to the surface, so the children have nothing to find. Their disappointment is so great, they stop believing in the Easter Bunny, which makes him invisible. Easter has always symbolized renewal, a fresh beginning, and new hope, but now that's been destroyed by darkness. When the Guardians realize that Jack was with Pitch, they become angry and say hurtful things, telling him he always ruins everything, and they never should have brought him onto the team. Wounded, Jack decides to isolate himself once again. This strongly reminds me of a quote from a writer named Jorge Luis Borges. We all resemble the image others have of us. This suggests that we are deeply vulnerable to the way others perceive us. And that quote is perfectly complemented by another one from his books. I felt the disdain of others, and I came to despise myself too. This means that, as human beings, our dependence on others is so profound that their gaze alone can strongly affect us. Let me explain. The recognition of others contributes to the construction of our self-image. For example, if others see us as kind or intelligent, we are likely to internalize those traits as part of how we see ourselves. But it also works the other way around. If others tell us we're useless, that we only cause problems, that we don't know how to work as a team, this will inevitably damage our self-perception, and therefore our behavior, as we're now seeing in Jack, who's isolated himself and is consumed by anger. Jack is about to throw his memories into the abyss, but he stops. He hears Pitch behind him, who has come to make him an offer to work together, because according to him, nothing goes better together than cold and darkness. He says that if they join forces, people will finally believe in them, to which Jack refuses. He knows they'll be recognized, but through fear and pain that they inflict, and he wants to be seen for his acts of kindness and the joy that he can bring. Pitch breaks his stick and leaves him unconscious and badly injured in a crevice. Just when he thinks all is lost, he realizes he still has the capsule. With nothing left to lose, he opens it and accesses his memories. We discover that before he became Jack Frost, this boy used to be someone very cheerful, with friends and a loving family. But everything changed one day when he went ice skating with his sister, who ended up in a dangerous situation. It looked like the ice would break and the girl would drown, but Jack knew what to do. He calmed her by saying, "Everything's going to be fine. We're going to have fun." And with a skillful move, he managed to save her life. But he wasn't so lucky. He ended up losing his own life to save his sister's. The day he fell into that frozen lake, the moon decided to give him a second chance. But now as Jack Frost, knowing that he had a family and what he had done, Jack finally understands, and at last he declares, "I am a guardian." With renewed hope, the boy repairs his stick and leaves the place. Meanwhile, Pitch is on the verge of declaring victory, as only a couple of believing children remain, and their lights are fading. But just as the last light is about to go out, it stays lit. That light belongs to the last child who still believes in the Guardians. Yes, it's the boy who saw them in his room. The child, thinking it was just a dream, is about to stop believing, but before his wonder fades, Jack appears to give him a small sign from the window. He draws with frost, creating a moving ice rabbit, and even makes snow fall inside the room. It is in this powerful moment that the boy puts the pieces together and exclaims, "Jack Frost?" and is left speechless upon seeing him standing in the room. Jack can't believe it. It's the first time in centuries that another human recognizes him and says his name. Jack asks the boy if he can hear him and see him, to which the boy replies yes. Now let's remember, Jack's greatest fear was that no one would ever believe in him. So in this moment, when someone finally does, it's emotionally liberating. He frees himself from the burden that's accompanied him for as long as he can remember. Jack's friends arrive, but they're far too weak to fight. Bunny's in such bad shape that he's turned into a tiny ball of fur. Just then, Pitch arrives to extinguish the last light, but Jack confronts him, marking the beginning of the final battle. The Guardians get Jamie to safety, while Jack faces the darkness head-on. The problem is, Pitch is so powerful that he quickly knocks Jack down. Eventually, Pitch corners them all, ready to finish them off. Jamie confides in Jack, "I'm scared." These words transport Jack to the day he saved his sister, so he replies to Jamie with the very same words, "You're going to be fine. We're going to have fun." At that moment, Jack is struck by the realization that he's finally understood his center, and with it, he finds his purpose: fun. He throws a snowball at Pitch and slides the Guardians down the streets, waking up the other children at the same time. Thanks to the snowballs, they too begin to believe in the Guardians once again. The entire battle ends with Sandman regenerating and joining the fight. A battle that's ultimately won by the Guardians, restoring the dreams to all the children in the world. Once everything's calm, Jack approaches North to tell him he's finally found his center. In response, the man gives him a small wooden figure in Jack's likeness. Pitch is dragged into the darkness by his own shadows, and at last, the Guardians hold a ceremony to once again name Jack a Guardian. This time, he accepts with joy. Before leaving, Jamie approaches Jack, asking him to stay, because if he doesn't see him anymore, he might stop believing. Jack replies that just as you don't stop believing in the moon when the sun comes out, or in the sun when the clouds cover it, the boy will never stop believing in him, because he'll always be in his heart. Which, in a way, also makes him a guardian. Jack found his center, and with it, his meaning, fun. But what I find interesting is that this purpose exists in relation to serving others, because others, beyond offering us validation and recognition, can also become a powerful source of meaning. Jack hugs Jamie and climbs aboard Santa's sleigh. Together they set off to return to their routine, continuing to protect dreams and bring happiness to children. While watching this story, I couldn't help but think that the Guardians and we, adults, are not so different. Let me explain. People's beliefs are rooted in real-life experiences or events. When someone starts believing in something from a young age, but then life experiences contradict that belief, it's natural to begin doubting its validity. In the film, this is clearly shown when Pitch's actions affect the children's beliefs. For example, if the children don't see their teeth being taken, they stop believing in the Tooth Fairy. If they don't find hidden eggs, they stop believing in the Easter Bunny. The Guardians are the protectors of hope and faith in the world. They're symbols of joy, wonder, hope, and dreams, essential elements that make life magical and meaningful. And when children stop believing in them, they begin to think the world lacks these positive elements. Without hope, joy, or wonder, children may succumb to the darkness and fear that Pitch represents. So it seems to me that if our beliefs are largely shaped by what we experience and observe in daily life, then as adults, we have the power to influence children's beliefs through our actions and behaviors. We can be guardians of their childhoods, making sure they see and experience good things in the world. We can show them that people can be kind, that they can help others, and that doing good has a positive impact. In this sense, we don't need to be fantastical or magical figures to be guardians. Being a good example is more than enough. By demonstrating the right path through our actions, we can instill in children the values and behaviors that, in the future, will make the world a better place. Being a guardian means a source of hope, joy, and wonder in the life of the child that we once were.